Good morning and welcome to One Baha'i, that regular show where, I just sit back and talk a little bit about my thoughts on the Baha'i faith. It's nothing official, it's just me, one individual, one Baha'i. So this morning, my initial thought was to talk about the 24 April 2017 letter from the Universal House of Justice. But given some of the reactions I got from yesterday's post, I wanted to talk about the reactions instead. I'll talk about this letter probably tomorrow or later this week. The date on that letter, by the way, again, was 24 April 2017. It's well worth looking up. I'll put a reference to it in the notes here. So, yesterday, as you know, I was talking about the riots in the U.S. and a little bit about the situation there. The reactions I got were quite interesting. So, as you know, most days when I begin, doing my blog, my cat wants to come up and join me, so naturally he wants to come up again. Anyways, the reactions I got were quite interesting. Most of them were people telling me to avoid talking about politics. And then some were even telling me to avoid talking about race at this time. I wanted to explore the reactions that people had and talk about them a bit. You see, even though Baha'is recognize that the earth is but one country and mankind its citizens, that all people are worthy of respect, there are still cultural differences that need to be addressed. Different cultures see things differently. In a number of indigenous cultures around the world, death is so feared that they will literally walk across the street rather than walk in front of a cemetery. And trying to do Ruhi Book 1 with them poses some difficulties. We need to learn to make this cultural translation. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the difference between what has often been called black culture, white culture in the US. It's something that has been pretty much ingrained in me for decades now. The first is in the African American culture, when white people are talking about things, we often have to say, oh, this group is awful, present company excluded. We have to make that clarification. In African American culture, you don't. It is left to the individual to exclude themselves. And I've often seen this raise hackles. In consultations, some people, usually African American, will say, oh, white people do this. And white people get their hackles up and say, oh, not all white people. Well, that is presumed on the part of the speaker. This is part of the difficulty with the Black Lives Matters hashtag. Black Lives Matter. It is left to the individual to recognize, well, of course, all lives matter, but yes, now we need to focus on Black Lives Matter. A second difference is the way in which aggression is showed. In white culture, we show aggression by raising our voice. Generally, most people. It's kind of funny because I don't feel aggression when I raise my voice because I was trained in voice speaking. So I naturally raise my voice to project. But most people in my culture, they raise their voice to be aggressive. In African American culture, I was told that this was not the case, that the raising of the voice, the yelling, the shouting, the getting in each other's face is part of the dynamics of conversation. It's only when you touch that it is seen as an act of aggression. So, what seems to happen sometimes, and I've seen this quite a lot actually, where an African American, as part of the conversation, to press their point, will raise their voice, and the white person will go, whoa, he's attacking me. Again, we need to learn to translate from culture to culture. I admit, sometimes when I'm chatting with some of my friends and they start to raise their voice, I have that reflex of feeling attacked, but I know that it's not their intention. It is merely my interpretation, and I take a moment to try to translate that and say, okay, all they're doing is trying to make a point. That's on me. That's not on them. That's on me. And I'm cool with that. Another issue is talking about race. Virtually every African American I know talks about race on a daily basis. It is something that they need to talk about because it is such an astonishingly important central part of their lives. White people don't. We don't talk about race, usually. The African Americans talk about it every single day in their homes. And friends, as a guy who is melaninely challenged, we need to talk about it. We need to be comfortable talking about it. Because the white folk are not comfortable talking about it, when it becomes crucial, like right now, we find ourselves uncomfortable talking about it. So every single person, every single letter and message that I got yesterday about that blog article, about this video, that said, don't talk about these issues, every single one of them was white. Every single one. And inside, I said, all right, they're just reverting to their default. That's cool. I was aware of that. I'm grateful for their intentions. So to all of you who wrote, thank you, I appreciate it. I will politely ignore your request. I will continue to talk about it because it's very imperative that we do. Today I actually have a couple of notes because there were some quotes that I wanted to write or that I wanted to address, but I don't have a printout of them, so I had to handwrite them. The Universal House of Justice says that it is not for Baha'is to vilify specific individuals when talking about these social issues. Or governments. You know, fine, we get that. That's not a problem. I totally understand that. I'm not going to vilify a specific government or a specific group of people or even specific individuals. It's not in my nature, and really I think it's part of a culture. These race riots in the States right now, they're cultural. It is a sign of the culture that needs to change. But we also know that in avoiding identifying with any political party, we must also guard against the other extreme in never taking part in social activities that are in line with the teachings. I'm paraphrasing the House of Justice here, but it's very close to what they're saying. We must guard against the other extreme of never taking part in social activities in line with the teachings. Friends, I don't know what the National Assembly in the U.S. is saying right now about this, but those demonstrations that I am watching on TV and looking at on the news, they are peaceful. It is outside agitators who appear to be coming in and disturbing things. And if that is the case, then I think whatever we can do to help raise the awareness of the issues is something that we need to get on ball with. There is a story that I heard from a friend of mine in Los Angeles. Many years ago, during the race riots in the 60s, sorry, my cat is shedding fur and it's hitting my face. Many years ago, during the race riots in the 60s, there were demonstration marches for race unity. And Hand of the Cause of God, William Sears, called the community and set up a meeting. And the way that it was told to me was he flew in, he got a ride from the airport to the venue, The venue was packed. He said it was really important that he meet with the community that night. So he flew in, went straight to the meeting, didn't say hi to anybody, just stormed through the doors, down the aisle, up onto the stage. No introduction. Got to the microphone and looked out at the audience and said, "Where were you?" And from what I was told, he proceeded to talk about the extreme importance of the Baha'is being at the forefront of the race unity activities. So friends, I'm sitting here in Canada in a comfortable chair and with a cat looking out at a beautiful setting, and I'm striving to take the time right now to make these videos. What are you doing?